and we're here today as the Building Bridges Initiative team is expected to hand over its report to President Uhuru Kenyatta. In a bid, we will also be telling you how their journey has been traversing the 47 counties until today, that they're supposed to be submitting their compiled report in a bit. But then this is what we are asking you. We want you to be a part of this conversation right in studio. On our viewpoint question, we are asking you, what issues do you expect the BBI report to address? What issues do you expect the BBI report to address? I know you have opinions. I know you have some issues that as a common mwananchi, wherever you are, you can contribute. What issues do you feel you'd like addressed in the BBI report that is supposed to be submitted today? Now, that is what we are asking you. 20154 is our SMS platform. At KBC Channel 1 is where you can interact with us on Twitter. What issues do you expect the BBI report to address? That is what we are asking you this morning. And that is what forms the basis of our conversation this particular morning. We want to start right away, get into it with my guests who have joined me in studio. From my far left there, we have the Speaker of Makueni County, Douglas Mbilu. Thank you so much for creating time for us.
Thank you very much.
All right, and then we have a governance expert, Job Ndege, sitting right at the center. Thank you for coming this morning.
Asante sana.
As we talk about matters BBI, I know there has been that whole concern of let's wait for the contents of the BBI to really get into what it means. But I know there are also on the other side, on the flip side, there has been a lot of debate that have come out with regards to this particular report. And we just want to help Kenyans understand what should shape their line of thinking going forward, even as we await to interact with this particular document. But I'd like to get your opening remarks from where you sit, with the anxiety that has been there, with the politics that has taken shape when, you know, politicians took to the podium in different functions talking about the BBI. What is it that, you know, as an individual, you can say this particular morning, even as we await for the report? Speaker.
Thank you very much. In my view, BBI, and as a matter of fact, BBI, Building Bridges Initiative, is just a report of a diagnosis on what has been ailing the country Kenya. It is not a referendum. It's not a law. But this is an initiative that was started by two presidential candidates who are competing. And the difference between their votes, that is the NAS at that time, and the Jubilee, was neck to neck. And therefore, there was no way we could lead in the direction that we are leading. This particular moment, you realize that the two leaders took the lead from the front, and they decided to manage us because we voted for them. That is very important. If you compare that with the Kuro Court, is also another initiative by a citizen, but let us not forget he was also a presidential candidate together with the rest. But these are the two who are competing neck to neck each other, and therefore they agreed, let us now establish, do a diagnosis on what is ailing the body called Kenya. And then after that, when we get their diagnosis report, which just describes the social, political, and economic issues ailing Kenya as two leaders, then how do we come up with a treatment plan, or what kind of medication are we going to give Kenyans out of that? The Constitution is very clear on how to conduct a referendum and other administrative and regulatory documents that can lead or can prescribe or can demonstrate how we'll move forward as a country. And Article 255, 256, and 257 is very clear if you have to take the referendum way. If we are going to deal with aspects of cohesion, reconciliation, and so forth, then we will realize. But at the moment, what we're expecting is just a report on issues as raised by stakeholders, by groups of people, the BBI committee that was established, and a reflection of the problems that we have had. To the two titular heads or political heads in this institution, it's very conspicuous that their deputies are missing in this arrangement, and therefore it's a question of two leaders taking responsibility and saying that we must lead from the front. Otherwise, who else would have done that? That's a question.
All right, so that very famous handshake between President Uhuru Kenyatta on March 9th came at a time when this country was really torn apart. Yes. In terms of, we were divided in terms of our political inclinations at that particular time. In fact, a lot was happening, and in the story that was compiled by my colleague Edward Kabasa, taking us down memory lane on how Kenya was at that particular time, there was economic boycott. We saw street protest left, right, and center. I don't know, from where you sit, Job, what do you read from the chronology of these events that have taken shape from the time President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga shook hands to this particular day when this report is supposed to be submitted? What would be, those issues you describe around that?
One is, you are right, that time was a bad time for the country. The economy was facing a meltdown. Politics had divided us completely. There were basically two sides of political divide, the Jubilee side and the NASA side. And if you remember, NASA had even gone ahead and started some other initiative where they were taking some bill to the county assemblies, basically calling for a people's assembly at some point in time, which was to come. So we were basically on the brink. And I like what the speaker said. It took quite some wisdom from the president and the former prime minister to say, you know what, we were the people who are contesting these elections. We had roughly the same number of votes. We have a large following. Let's lead from the front. And it's also a good moment in history, the fact that, and even from what they said when he was speaking at the Harambee House, that the two, President Uhuru and Prime Minister Raila, happened to also be the sons of the two founding fathers of the nation, the first president and the first vice president, Jaramogi, and President Jomo Kenyatta. And they also acknowledge as Kenyans that they have been around. Luckily, they have also been around since 1963 till now. They are both slightly elderly. They know how Kenya has progressed. We had some golden moments. We have had some missed opportunities. And then politics have hit us so hard lately. So they know what has happened. And they took personal pledges that they are going to help Kenya reset to where the founding fathers of the nation actually left them. So they went ahead and formed the task force, and then politics hit in. As usual, Kenyans, we are so political, more so when people looked at only a bit of the 9-point agenda that we had. You remember they had some very wide-ranging things from inclusivity in governance to ethnicity to corruption, devolution, security, and the rest. But all the noise that has emanated since that time has just been on the executive. And actually the executive is a very small part of that inclusivity. Well, politics seems to drive our collective pulse as a nation, but it's not everything. Yes, there are a lot of other things that the BBI is going to look at other than the structure of government. So as time went on, you had, and the speaker also mentioned it, that the deputies of Raila and the president seems to have missed in action. But that was not actually the case initially. You remember just after they shook hands, the deputy president tweeted saying he's happy. Raila was reported to have actually met Kalonzo and talked to him. In fact, at some point, he met the whole NASA team somewhere in Manzoni and briefed them on what they had discussed with the president. So it started shakily, like a two-man affair, but they tried to brief their lieutenants, who unfortunately, as people started moving now towards that task force, it took a while for task force to start running. They didn't have money, they didn't have a secretariat. Then as they started hitting the ground, I think the rest of the lieutenant of President Uhuru and Prime Minister Raila realized that this could be a political bombshell for them. More so when the president and the prime minister started saying this is not about 2022. Unfortunately or fortunately, the rest of the team, Kalonzo, Ruto, the rest, had such ambitions for 2022 that all they could maybe think about that moment was that how are we going to be positioned when it was 2022 based on this initiative. Forgetting that 2022 was not actually an agenda with those 9 points that the president and the prime minister had actually put in. Yes.
There seems to be a lot of mistrust from the onset with regards to this particular initiative, and many even questioned the motive behind the handshake between President Uhuru Kenyatta and opposition leader Raila Odinga. I don't know what you'd say with regards to the level of mistrust that has been, has surrounded this whole agreement between the two leaders.
The scramble for resources in Kenya, using communities as on ethnic groups as tools to achieve power is one of the problems that we have. And when some players in the political divide feel that this initiative is exonerating me from the mainstream, then they retreat back to their enclaves. And they want to galvanize their communities so that whatever the outcome that is going to be then does not isolate them. And therefore, if you look at one of the 9 issues addressed in the BBI was ethnicity and how it has really affected the development in terms of using the positive and the negative. BBI also has been affected by the negative ethnicity, and you've seen how leaders, they have gone back to their backyards and trying to claim, including even recently when the president himself had to retreat to his backyard in Sagana and convene all central Kenya leaders. That tells you the role that the ethnic groups in this society play in our political. But how then do we utilize these ethnic groups for purposes of ascending to power and accumulation of resources? Remember, some scholars have defined politics as authoritative allocation of state resources and value. And therefore, if you acquire that position, how do you utilize it? One, in your interest and in the interest of others. That's point number one. Point number two, where we are as a country, it's unlikely that we will succeed if we will have a 50+1 model, because chances are that when you have a 60-40 situation, what happens to the 40% of the Kenyans who did not vote to you? It means they will oppose you throughout. World over, we can see democracies are changing again, and the inclusivity and coalition is the way to go. But back to your question, the elements that were not, with due respect, that were not involved in the initial decision on how to go forward with healing the country, felt that that was not the agenda. Because remember, NASA had a clear agenda on what they wanted to do for the next 5 years, and so is Jubilee. So when one former Prime Minister Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta, the President of the Republic of Kenya, sit the two of them and decide on behalf of this country, there are some of us who are players in the background, I mean whole citizens who voted for Raila to be president and NASA to be in government alone. This looks like a situation whereby is the president trying to ask Raila to be part of the government, and therefore the bread is going to be too small for us. I think that was the debate. Remember, previously, before election, people invest a lot of emotions and strategies on how they are going to be in power. Human beings are power-seeking beings, and therefore they do not want to share. So I think that has been the outcry. Consistently, you've seen the former Vice President, Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, saying that together with the Wiper Party, that they're supporting the President Uhuru Kenyatta bid and the BBI, to the extent that then it reflects the wishes of Kenya. 2 days ago, when the President was someplace in Central, I think around Thika, 2 days ago, he said that he's urging Kenyans to read and the BBI report analyze, but that BBI report and the issues must reflect the wishes of the people. The statement by Deputy President 2 days ago is completely different from the statement that was made by the Deputy President about 5 or 6 months ago, meaning that citizens have been engaged to some extent, because this started with the two and then it's ballooning to other stakeholders, and we think that they have been socialized with other leaders to support this initiative, because everything rises and falls with leadership. And therefore, the President and the former Prime Ministers have said they took personal responsibility. Remember, the Deputy President are part of the presidency. They cannot exist in isolation, and therefore, the vote was casted for the person of and the candidature of Raila Odinga and that of Uhuru Kenyatta. And therefore, the deputies and those aspiring to be in government and to be in cabinet, they were there to some extent for the bigger good, but also for their selfish good. Mm-hmm. And I think that is why we had some people who have been complaining over time. Yes, but
should that is granted. But should his support or the support of those who are supposed to be part of the presidency be automatic? Aren't they entitled to some sort of, let's question this issue, let's look at it in different angles?
Yes,
are they entitled to that?
You're entitled to that, but again, in real politics, when your leader has made a certain step that from the face of it is good for the nation, you are supposed to have been whipped as well, and you are part of that. So likewise to Raila and his NASA, it's the same to Uhuru and Jubilee. Somebody had to step up. And like I said, the biggest stumbling block to the rest of the teams behind Raila and behind Uhuru was the issue of 2022. Yeah, there was going to be a lot of issues about where will I lie come 2022 based on this new initiative. So I thought it was very wise for them to meet as two, and then they go back to their lieutenants and tell them, guys, this is the discussion we had with let me call the other adversary, and this is the way forward you're going to move. And then they unveiled a task force. If you remember what happened in 2007 after we had those issues, post-violence, electoral violence, they formed a task force which included politicians. This time around, they're a bit, in my view, wiser. Rather than forming some parliamentary-based kind of group, they reached widely and took other people in society to champion those things. And why I say it is wise, you remember after we had the issues in 2008, one sticking thing that we have never finished was a thing called Agenda 4. Agenda 4 was never really finalized. And in fact, is what is ailing. If you look at all the issues that we are talking about, including even the 9 points, most of them actually revolve around the items that are in Agenda 4. Yeah. And it was mostly because the people who were sitting on those negotiation tables were actually politicians. These ones, though there are some politicians in them, they are people that you will imagine have seen it all. People that you will imagine among representatives of some of our sectorial interests in society. So they're politicians, but they're wise ones and they're older in nature. In fact, there are not a lot of young people in the group. I know the young people are complaining, why were they not included? I think it was the wisdom of the two. They said,
where's the voice of the youth?
Exactly, yeah. But the youth had a chance to go and present their opinions. No one stopped the youth from going, this is now the youth voice. Let's go out there and do that. Yes.
You know, which areas, where did these sittings or these sessions happen? You know, there are quite a majority of Kenyans who tell you they have not had a chance to give their views. In fact, today we are asking Kenyans to give their views on what they think should be included in the BBI report. But yeah, many of them still feel like they were not really fully given that opportunity. So what really happened, Speaker? You say it's a Kenyan-driven agenda. Is the voice of Kenya in this particular?
To some extent, and when you're speaking about leadership, how do you reach 40 to 50 million Kenyans in a span of 1 year? It's not possible to meet each and every one, and that is why Kenyans have voted for a member of County Assembly, a member of Parliament. If you look at the Constitution of Kenya, Article 1 is that the sovereignty or the power and the authority of the citizen shall be exercised directly or indirectly through democratically elected leaders and others appointed in the executive and others appointed and elected by society, whether in charge, whether in social functions, whether in welfares and so forth. The fact of the matter is that the committee led by Moswako and Honorable Yusuf Haji has reached out to this country, at least at part of region. And they have visited every county, and they publicized where they went, and they invited people. It is not possible for them to meet the citizens of Makueni or citizens of Kiambu at a go. Then that is going to be a referendum. And therefore, to some extent, there has been a representation. I had an overview of the institutions that were reached out, including court, to include the non-state actors, including the county assemblies, to some extent, including even members of parliament, individuals, a parliamentary service commission, the National Assembly itself, even judiciary has done to some extent, though it's independent, but you can see aspect of Law Society of Kenya, they gave their opinion. And therefore, since Law Society gave an opinion on what they think it is affecting, for example, lawyers, it is not up to the responsibility of every lawyer to be questioned. I think that is what we do understand, to the extent to which each and every citizen can participate. I think that is the point. But back to the representation of the young people, I disagree with my senior by age, because young people, strictly speaking, they were not represented. The aspect of gender was represented to some extent. However, it was good that the two leaders did not engage very active and fairly young politicians to partake in this, because if you've seen who are going around speaking about 2022, they are ambitious candidates and politicians who want to make their kill in terms of harnessing power between now and 2027. So it was proper for them not to be involved. But again, nothing wrong with involving women and young people who are not politically inclined, so that you're also mentoring a society that acknowledges what has happened. But quickly, if you look at our journey from 2002, where Kalonzo, Saitoti, Raila Odinga, Charity Ngilu, Wamalwa Senior and others coalesced against Uhuru Kenyatta and Ruto William, who was the director of elections for KANU. Remember in Kasarani when one Uhuru Kenyatta was nominated to be the KANU presidential flag bearer, and the rest fell out. Kalonzo and Raila Odinga were potential presidential candidates, but then they decided to cede ground for one Mwai Kibaki. Why they decided to cede one Mwai Kibaki is because they knew if one of them became a president, then it would automatically suspend the candidature of the rest for life. So they agreed on one Mwai Kibaki. But Ruto was active. Uhuru Kenyatta was a presidential candidate that time, and the rest, Kalonzo Musyoka, including Mudavadi, were in play. Remember the famous song of Unbogable. Then came 2007. In 2007, then there was post-election violence. So the only election up to this moment where we had some peace is 2002. In 2002, there was an absolute win of approximately 2/3 majority against KANU, that minority. Mudavadi that time was a running mate for Uhuru Kenyatta. Ruto was the director for elections. Now you can see that axis. In 2007, William Ruto jumps the ship and joins and leads Raila campaign, which was the Pentagon that time, and Gilu, Mudavadi and others were in the mix. Then Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka then decides to go hit alone in 2007. Then election violence elapsed again. Why? Because there is no absolute winner. Whether the votes were stolen or not, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense. But what really happens when you have a 50-50 scenario? You have substantial number that is not satisfied. Remember, then Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka is asked, or to some, whether by strategy or by default, he joins Kibaki and is named as a deputy or vice president at that time. But again, the numbers were not enough. They were not more than 70% to silence the ODM and the Pentagon that time. And that is what brought about the discussions at Serena, where some politicians, the likes of Martha Karua, Mudavadi, Mutula Kilonzo, and so forth, were involved. And they really frustrated the exercise because they could see that process beyond 2017 and then 2027 and beyond. And that is why one William Ruto, you can trace him from the YK Youth for KANU, then in 2002 as a director for election, and then leading Raila Odinga campaigns in the Pentagon, and then he jumps ship again from Raila's side, and then goes back to his colleague of 2002, later in 2013, who is Uhuru Kenyatta. And now he's with Uhuru Kenyatta, but because Uhuru Kenyatta is at the verge of exiting politics, now he's charting his way forward. As to whether Ruto and Raila will find themselves together with Kalonzo is completely a different question. But you can see these are politicians who are just swinging on their chairs, and they're shifting every other time, taking advantage of the citizen. And every time we make a vote, then they have a way of dividing themselves into a 50-50 scenario, which then puts us into a situation of questioning whether our votes were stolen or they were genuine, and therefore dividing the country into two.
Which brings me back to the question I asked.
Yes.
Is it Wanjiku-driven, this initiative? We've also had critics of the BBI saying that they are going to really shoot down this report because to them they feel it's a move to create positions for some people in government, and they are not in support of something like that. So is it Wanjiku-driven really? Is there a genuine concern for the needs of Wanjiku?
Yes, in the sense that the two leaders who conceptualized BBI represents Wanjiku. Yes, he has put it
Correct.
Very aptly. Yes, not 50 million people can sit in an assembly and debate an issue. Some representation must be there, and our constitution recognizes that representation. And there is no better representative of the people than a president who garners slightly over 50% of the vote, and a candidate who also garners about 50% of the vote. Those two collectively is 100% of the populace. So as long as we followed them, and we followed them to the absolute, and it was very clear, almost 50-50, then we can say, and there's a constitutional backup, that they represent our opinions as a people. But better than that, they took it forward and then decided that their task force will go ahead and listen to the views of the populace. Remember one thing that the BBI critics have been talking about is that, it is not constitutional, it is not whatever. The president has authority to form any task force on any matter. Even today, if there's an issue, for instance, after the landslide in West Pokot, if there's an issue about how should residents stay in areas where there are mudslides, the president can form a task force tomorrow and gazettes it, and thus it will move. Now that task force will ultimately advise the president, who now using other constitutional means may now move it forward. If it now requires legislation, if it requires constitutional changes, then it can move forward using the right things. So the 14-member team moved now to the people, and they advertised it very widely. It was pretty known, and even politicians now who, on whichever camp now took it upon themselves to start being the proponents of this BBI thing, which by that time, no report has come out. So as far as the representation is concerned, I believe, yes, it represents Wanjiku because the leaders who are there were leaders who represent Wanjiku.
Well said. Allow me share with our viewers, people who could be asking probably, who are these people who are involved in this, who shared their opinions on some of these issues. There was a press statement that was released on the 22nd of November this year by the secretariat of that particular task force. It was a statement that was co-signed by Ambassador Martin Kimani and Paul Mwangi, the joint secretaries. They say that they traversed the 47 counties, collected recommendations from over 7,000 Kenyans from different ethnic groups, genders, cultural and religious practices, and Kenyans who cut across from different social and economic sectors, and they were supposed to give proposals on solutions on some of the pressing national challenges. I will be engaging my guests on what are some of these issues that are ailing Kenya today in a bit. But 400 elected leaders also from who are elected now and in the past also gave their opinions on this. Prominent voices from the community and the youth. There were about 120 individuals representing major institutions. There were about 260 individuals from and organizations that emailed their memoranda, those who couldn't be reached physically. And then the task force also received over 750 handwritten submissions, and it goes on and on about how this exercise was conducted. But then they compiled the now BBI report that is expected to be presented to President Uhuru Kenyatta today and tomorrow, the 27th of November 2019. There's going to be a public handing over of this particular report, and we'll be giving you details about that later. But yes, so there were about 7,000 people that, according to the task force, were engaged on the issues that are pressing, that the challenges that are facing this country, and they gave their opinions. If you were part of this team, or if you were given a chance to talk about what are some of the issues that Kenya is facing today, issues that ought to shape this report, that we should focus on, what would those issues be for you, Mheshimiwa?
One of the major issues that we are grappling with is ethnicity. Ethnicity in this country, which has been used as a tool, and as I've indicated earlier, as a tool for gaining or ascending to power, which is something that we must convert it from the negative ethnicity to positive ethnicity. We cannot argue that we want to drop our ethnic practice and cultural practice, but you see, ethnicity is a negative application of a cultural practice to disadvantage others by virtue either of proximity or by numbers. That is a point. That's something that we have to acknowledge. But then two, again, I've indicated that politics is defined as authoritative allocation of state resources and value. And then that authority to allocate state resources and value then must be, to some extent, be as representative as possible. To the extent that you have a presidential candidate and a deputy president candidate who can run this country for the next 15 or 20 years, alternating from the two ethnic groups, then that will be perceived in a very negative way and be given a negative connotation. So whether we like it or not, and there are good practices, we have had peace in 2008, 2009, when there was an Usmukate government trying to bring the leaders together. Remember, most of us are saying that it's only during Kibaki era that we had a sound leadership. There was quietness and there was sober assembly, and President Kibaki disappointed a number of things. This cannot be attributed to the person of Kibaki alone, but there was political goodwill from all sectors that drove the national development agenda, from the Prime Minister, the former Vice President Kalonzo, and those stakeholders. Remember, Mudavadi was the Deputy Prime Minister, Uhuru Kenyatta was. And who are they? You may like it or not, they are tribal chiefs to some extent, because they generate from an African developing society that must associate itself with the figurehead or the titular head to that extent. As a developing country in the next maybe 15 years, then we will have virtue representatives who will represent society across the board. But for now, that is what we have, and we must live there. So to the extent that we do not have representation at the national institution that allocates resources and value, then Kenya will still continue to be in a problem. To the extent we do not have an electoral system that then guarantees not 50 plus 1%, but to some extent 60 and 70 plus 1%, which then enhances the inclusivity as one of the agendas that has been put down as a part of BBI, then we are not going to have peace in this country, because you must have the citizens who vote to some extent. Then the majority should be absolute majority, because a simple majority then may not govern this country because of ethnic diversity, poverty, social class, and cultural practices that we do. Remember urbanization, you cannot compare Nairobi, Eldoret, Nakuru, and Northeastern, and so is rural parts of Makwe. And therefore, there is absolute diversity. So that inclusivity is very, very important. Now, the goodwill of this country will depend on the reflection of the leadership and participation of everyone. If you look at the component of participation that must be ensured, and that's why citizens are questioning, why did we not participate in the BBI? It's because they feel that they must own this process. But as he indicated, these are two presidential candidates who are voted and at approximately over 48% each. Then therefore they carry 80%. So to the extent that I voted for one, then they are representing me. To the extent of some went to Urpak and so on, in Raila Odinga, whether legally or illegally, then it means that they believe that he is their president. So that is the representation enough. Two, this report, as he has indicated, it just expresses the wishes of the people, which will be handed over today. Then tomorrow, 4,700 delegates from across the country will be handed over the report, representing others. I'm aware every county assembly, all members of parliament are invited bombers. 20 members of county assembly across the political divide have been invited bombers of Kenya to be part of the delegation, and so are religious sectors and other aspects of society. But this does not end the process of public participation. That on tomorrow is going to be a public participation. When the document has been handed over, symbolical to the 4,700, then will be handed over to the institutions. It is up to you and me to look at that document. But speaking from a point of a legislative process and as a speaker, we are not yet a referendum. So if now we want to engage Kenyans to participate within the confines of the constitution that we have at the moment, then this document must find itself to either county assemblies or the National Assembly and the Senate. So
I see where you're taking us, and I appreciate that part of the conversation, because yes, in this conversation, we also ought to, engage on what next after this document has been released to the public. Okay. We will talk about that and the processes that are there post us receiving this particular document. But we're still dwelling on the issues. Yes, issues that are ailing this country, issues that ought to form such an important document. And also, let me get your views on those particular issues, Joe.
I think one big issue is diversity, as the speaker has mentioned. We are a diverse nation. And I think it's high time that Kenyans agreed that this is a nation consisting of various cultural and tribal groupings. That's what Kenya is. So how do we safeguard that and use it positively? The current electoral process is such that when one wins, then that grouping around that winner is the one who seems to be either on the table, sharing resources, or leading in all the resources available to the exclusion of others. This is something that we must honestly discuss, and I know it's one of the agendas that the BBI team had following the handshake, and we have to agree on. I'd like to see a situation where it's agreed, even legislated, how do all Kenyans get entitled to the Kenyan resource? Yes, I would like to see that put in legislation, because we have left it to the goodwill of our leaders. It hasn't worked. The system of governance we're having currently is still possible for any leader to actually appropriate resources as they wish, as long as they have a majority in parliament and they are also in the executive. We have seen it happening. So that's one aspect that I believe people really made a lot of representation on what can be done. And there are a lot of examples. We are not the only nation which has 40-something tribes. Tanzania has 300. In fact, there's even more. In the Nordic countries, they have various minorities. And there are ways in which minorities get protected. In fact, there is even what we think is a ridiculous example. But in some countries, there's actually rotational leadership. There are councils of minorities actually sharing the table for decision making. So we can borrow from all this. But we must accept that there are 42 plus tribes in this country, and each of those tribes is as important as the other.
As the other.
That's one.
Which I agree.
Yes.
But, where did the rain start beating us? Why is the issue of tribe so relevant when it comes to who becomes a leader? Is it part of the qualities of leadership that tribe has to be somewhere there? Even in the qualities of somebody vying for presidency in this country, I don't see the issue of tribe. My question then is, why must I have somebody from my community on top for me to feel represented? Can't any other person just, who is serving in a public office just equally, serve Kenyans equally and have all Kenyans feel like they're represented by this particular individual? Must I have somebody from my community in that position for me to feel like my interests and my needs are going to be served? Anyone can. In fact, I want a cocktail of both your responses. Fine. Yeah. Let me start with you, Mheshimiwa.
Okay, fine.
Let me take it because I had talked about it. Yeah. Proceed. Yeah. It's the current culture. It's where when I'm leading a national entity, it is like my tribe leading. It's actually our ethos. One of the things they are talking about is our national ethos. Yes. How do we get us to think that, yes, I could be from tribe X, but I'm a Kenyan. And tribe Y, Z, E are equally Kenyans. How do we get that national ethos in us? It hasn't worked yet. So there must be very strategic steps, and it may not be immediate. It may take a while to do. But as it takes a while, tribe Z should not suffer. Neither should tribe A. So we can have some legislative.
But we all agree then there needs to be that, we need to dilute that aspect.
Yes, at the end of the day, it should be the state of Kenya that matters. So we need to have steps to make us feel Kenyan, but at the same time, like I've mentioned, we should not forget that Kenyan is made of 42 plus ethnic communities. There should be no. There should be no. Okay. We should not be embarrassed about it. We are. There. Yes, we are. Yeah, but let's bring that national ethos up and promote it at the expense of all these other things. But as we share the resources, or as we share in making the resources, people always talk of sharing the resource, but not baking it. As we all bake the resource, let it be shared equitably to all the nation tribes of Kenya. Yes.
Also, your thoughts on that?
I think this has been brought about 55 years ago and over, when our founding father, President Kenyatta, was Prime Minister and then a President. The tribalist card had to be instituted. Remember, the white settlers settled on particular areas where there were resources. And when one President Kenyatta, the late Mzee, became the President of the Republic of Kenya, and there was a unitary way of leading the country such that even the President had absolute executive authority. For purposes of utilizing ethnicity, then resources were allocated to some extent in one region as opposed to another, for purposes of protecting the vote. Because there was fear of, in the subsequent election, because the election does not provide for absolute 2/3 majority, to some extent is simple majority, then one has to be very sure that I have to safeguard my home vote. But the citizens who have benefited from the goodies and the biscuits and sodas from the regime that is in power also encourage and adopt tribalism as a card and as a reward of remaining in power, so that if their son or daughter remains to be a president, there will be more roads, there will be more education institutions, there will be more hospitals in the region. We don't come from moon, we come from this country. The second president of the Republic of Kenya was President Moi, and enjoying the democracy that we have, he had also a responsibility to protect his vote. Remember, only Kamodo was the Secretary General of KANU from the central Kenya. The rest of central politicians were still wallowing until when Kibaki and Matiba are struggling to find their way back. And remember, they were blaming each other, who is spoiling for who that time. Then Moi ruled for approximately over 24 years. But again, what is the perception of Kenyans who are not in power that time? They continue to argue that when a certain tribe was in power, when our founding father was leading, they were benefiting more. Now that benefit has substantively been withdrawn, and they can notice the difference. The goodies are no more, and they've just come. When Moi becomes the president, there is a shift on the sharing of public resources in terms of public appointment, in terms of road, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of social services, in terms of other practices. Absolute shift that is visible. And therefore, citizens not coming from that particular ethnic enclave, then they feel that they have been neglected. So what do? Leave alone the candidates. the citizenry and the elite from that particular region or other regions, they cocoon and start to develop a presidential candidate so that they can use that candidate as a bargain, so that when that presidential candidate wins, then they can duplicate what has happened in 1963 up to 2002. So it is a practice. In social learning, it's just a copy-paste. What works, then you try to apply it so that it can work in reverse.
But the issue of tribe remains
the tribe has been used as an instrument of ascending to power, because for you to ascend to power, you require absolute simple majority. And therefore, since the constitution does not allow so many stakeholders to be part of the absolute executive, like you see recently in 2020, the Newscheck government, as a phase of Mudavadis and Uhurus and Kalonzos and Kibaki, and every Kenyan somehow was satisfied. Why? It is because the Kenyans have been socialized into a tribal kings, and when their tribal kings, so to speak, were in power, and then there was a lot of calm and tranquility, because both you, myself, and him have been socialized through education and culturally and politically to know that we are Kamba, we are Kikuyu, and ABCD. Why? Because the power in place is disenfranchising other communities at advantage of one. So there is a comparative analysis of one or two against 40 tribes. But so which must be addressed.
But as now, as the voices of reason in such conversations, is it right to go that direction? Is it doing us justice to hold on to, our tribe, our ethnicity as our bargaining power when it comes to matters leadership?
It's not right to conclude. It's not right. But there are things that are not right, but you cannot pray for them to be correct. You must take an initiative, an active role, a deliberate action to address the problem, and be pragmatic with the manner in which you're going to address it. Again, saying that we're going to have a single presidential or one-term presidential or whatever you're going to talk about is not solving the problem, because the problems of Kenyans, it is not even corruption. The corruption is a creation of ethnicity because people want to attract and acquire more. But even when they are in that sect of culture and tribalism, they are rarely punished because they cannot be punished by their brothers. So it's still a subset of ethnicity and how resources are being allocated. So this must be addressed. To address this, then we must acknowledge the cultural diversity, and that Kenya is an undeveloped country migrating to developed country, to undeveloping to a developed country. When you talk developed, it's not about road. We are talking about how many Kenyans are past Form 4 leavers and graduated above. How many are illiterate? How many do imagine that your son should be a president? So it's about generational change, but there must be an affirmative action and a deliberate action to make sure that all citizens feel that they are represented in the leadership of this country, both at the National Assembly and judiciary and other public appointments, so that they may feel they are part of it, acknowledging the ethnic diversity, because the ethnicity or the tribe of X cannot be divorced from the individual. That is the point. And then how do we use it positively? It is how then do we mobilize the tribalism that we have and the uniqueness that we do have to have a better governance system than isolating some. That is the only way we solve the problem.
I remember we were having a pre-conversation with Job, concerning that issue. And what you're saying pretty much resonates with
because we have seen it. We have seen it since Kenya became a nation in 1963, where people take advantage once they empower their tribe to appropriate resources to themselves as a gift for others. So yes, we need to acknowledge that this exists. And one of the things that the BBI actually are supposed to look at was historical injustices. Kenyans used to agree that for the past 40, 50 something years, about 56, isn't it? Yes, from 63 to now, there have been that diversity. There has been that disproportionate sharing of resources, as well as disproportionate making of the resources. And some of those which were because of political expediencies and power needs to be acknowledged. You remember, like, we are supposed to be having a TJRC report, which is still gathering dust in Parliament. We have to, and I hope the BBI will give us a roadmap on how the TJRC report needs to be acknowledged, the proper one, not the doctored one. We know there was an issue. The proper TJRC report, where Kenyans agree that we have had issues, especially to do with the resource mobilization, resource distribution, and because of governance. And this is how we are going to solve it.
To solve it.
Yes, that's very important.
All right. I wonder what sort of representation Kenyans really need at this particular time, because I would cite an example of what is happening even at the county governments. When devolution came into existence, what was a beautiful dream was marred with a lot of controversy. It was supposed to take the national cake closer to the common mwananchi who is in the remotest parts of this country. But we've had cases of some, county governments being named in nepotism issues. Somebody from that community is in somebody from your village who is supposed to be representing your needs at your doorstep, still taking part in corruption, still taking part in matters nepotism. So how will having somebody from my community at the top change the narrative? What sort of representation is going to be different this time around? If the county governments that were supposed to really, these are people from my village, from my community, they're people I know, people I interact with, some even went to school together, but still would not fully address the needs of that particular community or that particular county. How different, which road should we take that is different?
For the last 7 years, I've been active in county governments, in the executive arm of the county government and now in the legislature oversighting. And I understand a little bit of the actual practice in the county government. But from the global perspective, let us agree that devolution, even if you look at the 9 points, it is acknowledging that devolution is trying to take Kenya to a better situation. Firstly, it's solving the problem of resource allocation, such that not less than 15% are going to counties. So if they go to Kiambu, Murang'a, Makueni, and Taita Taveta, then you have guaranteed that the resources at least are in the 47 counties. That's level. As to whether they remain at the headquarters is completely a different thing. Before, the discretion of taking resources to Taita Taveta and Kilifi was at the discretion of the chief executive, who was the president, not even the vice president. That is point number one. Now, everything I've said raises and falls with leadership. If you have discrimination and nepotism at the appointment of the cabinet ministers, at the national levels, appointment in the parastat, for example,
is still being stolen, then what is the...
I'm coming there. If you have a reflection of public appointment and allocation of resources, including the national government programs and projects at the national realm that is inclined, then what are you telling the governors who sit with the president and discuss? That if the top leaders are practicing this at the national government functions, then they are infecting their young brothers or other smaller governments to practice the same. Because as we speak, corruption is a vice that is not only limited to the government, but in the institution of family, in the institution of church, at the marketplace and the governance structure. So it's something that we must deal with as the same way we have addressed, deliberately decided to confront HIV/AIDS and speak about and talk about it, from even including teaching children at class 3, 4, 5, 6 what is corruption, what is HIV/AIDS and how busy it and protective behaviors and things like that. So you cannot address corruption at the age of, at the age of 50s and above. You can't change the mindset. It must be taken back. So that corruption is a vice. But allocation of the resources, the constitution deliberately wanted to transfer resources. And that is a problem, again, we are trying to solve, to transfer the resources to the citizens, so that the president do not have the jurisdiction of saying this is what is going to go to county X or BCD, because it's provided for in the constitution, no one can change it. What now we are grappling with is cascading ethnicity. Now not ethnicity in terms of ethnic groups, but clans and family, friends and so forth, which again, if you look carefully, you find that the administrators, more than 50% of the governors in the counties, are former national government officers who were in office, some of them by virtue of the former administration, which was rewarding ethnic groups so that then you can safeguard the vote. Because consistently, I'm talking about how a presidential election leads to protecting your home turf so that you can sustain power, including having those you are leading from your community chanting and tell you that you cannot go back. One more thing. At the eve of the previous election in 2013, where we got Ruto, and you remember the ICC politics, it is vivid and very clear to us that there was a debate that since President Kibaki was coming from a central region, cannot be succeeded by a person from the same region. And you could see one Uhuru Kenyatta at that time very reluctant because he felt cannot work. But who changed the thing the last minute? it is the people themselves that frog-marched him and told him that you must move forward, otherwise you are not. And because by virtue of numbers he got. So this ethnicity is not about the candidate. It is about, even at times, of the community, at the expense of protecting the resources that have been allocated to themselves because they are used to them, and others are complaining and are claiming it. So counties are copying that because those who are in position of power, more than 50% of the governors were in the national administration, and they are products of the same. They are not implementing the constitution, they are not implementing public participation, they are not implementing fairness, they are not implementing fair distribution of resources, because they are part of a society and a system that is inclined in one region or another for purposes of protecting their vote.
So we agree that these challenges were replicated at the county level as well.
Oh yes.
This discrimination and lack of inclusivity
absolutely
is also being experienced
in
within the people
yes.
who come within the same ethnic
yes.
Group. So what is it that the BBI
will do?
There are two ethnicity
things.
is among the main issues
yes.
that were reference points for
and
the
corruption.
Yeah.
What you're talking about includes corruption and abuse of office. And
so what will be the silver bullet? What is it that will make
and imagine that a good part of this has been actually been legislated on in our current constitution. But there was one major thing that is weak, Chapter 6. I'm really hoping that through the leadership and our national ethos agenda and corruption and the responsibility of every citizen to do good, we are going to rework on how Chapter 6 can actually be institutionalized and can work. You know, when you, as a leader, when you make a mistake or you abuse your office or you are corrupt, there need to be a recourse on how to do that. And the recourse should not only be legal. There should be a moral recourse that the Constitution has provided in Chapter 6. People should just say this job is not fit to be the governor of Kisumu, for instance, because of ABCD. But that has not been working. Parliament deliberately ensure that is not working. Our legal system, when there was a court case in 2013 challenging President Uhuru and Deputy President from vying, our legal system also meandered about that issue. But I'm happy at least Justice Mumbi Ngugi has decided that Chapter 6 needs to be implemented, though she's using legal means to do it. But I hope the BBI will bring it back such that constitutionally Chapter 6 gets implemented not through the whims of legislation, like is at the moment, but Kenyans had already spoken on the kind of leaders that we need. If that happens, then we have a recourse to some of these people. Some of these people will not be fit to lead. And I like what the president said the other day in Sagara, reportedly said, when he was supposed to say that if you are corrupt, we would like you to be 100 meters. In fact, meters 7 small, maybe I'll say 100,000 kilometers. Away from leadership. We should be able to point out that this person and that person does not meet our qualities, our national agreed qualities of a leader. And this thing should be constant. We should not just leave it to the voter, because the voter sometimes is powerless. It should be our systems, our ethos, our values as a society, as we have them in Article 10, should be able to translate into real action during the elections.
Right.
That no job you can't be.
Even if you say voters sometimes are powerless,
yes.
Maybe I would say all the time the voter is powerless. At the end of the day, it's the political kingpins that call the shots. I'm coming back to have this very important conversation, but allow us also interact with what residents from Busia County had to say with regards to the BBI report.
Inasema BBI ni si maneno iliyotengenezwa na Uhuru na Raila. Hao walibuni tu hilo jobo. Na hilo likaenda kwa kaunti 47. Kaunti 47 hawakuacha hata kaunti moja. Na yale iko katika BBI, hiyo ni maoni ya wananchi. Si maoni ya Uhuru, si maoni ya Raila.
Ngojea BBI kabisa kwa sababu kuna mazuri pale. Ingawa sijajua ni nini hiko ndani, lakini najua hawezi kukosa mazuri. Au wazee hawezi kukaa wakafanya maneno mabaya ambayo hatasaidia mwananchi. Kwa mfano, inclusivity. Tunataka watu pia wajisikie wako kwa serikali yao. Sisi wenyewe tutasoma. Mimi mwenyewe nitasoma, nihakikishe ni vipi watu wangu nitawaelekeza. Kwa sababu mimi pia nilikuwa mmoja wa delegates walikuwa Bomas of Kenya. Na mimi ni msomi. Mimi sitakaa chini ningojee viongozi wetu wasome. Hapana, mimi nitasoma, niichambue, nikishaichambua nitachukua msimamo wangu.
Nikipata kama itasaidia mwananchi wa kawaida, nitapiga kura. Lakini nikipata wameongeza cheo kwa baadhi ya viongozi, mimi kama mwananchi wa Busia nitaipinga na nitaiangusha asubuhi kabisa.
Ikaletwe isomewe sisi na mjumbe wetu, MCS wetu watusomee hapa. Sisi maoni yetu ndio ipitishwe.
There you have it. Now iletwe MCS wetu watusomee. You know, this is what I was saying before we went to that. You know, the Mwananchi still feels like, you know, the leaders carry the day. It's them to say, it's them to read, it's them to interpret for us, it's them to give us the way forward.
That has been the case, but progressively that needs to change. People need to realize that it is we who have it. It's we who put those leaders into position. So whereas we donate sovereignty to them as per the constitution, but we have decided that so and so needs to occupy such and such seat. But again, there are so many issues when it comes to elections and leadership. And one of the things which I hope they'll also deal with is money during elections. There are people who actually literally buy elections. You find that because of people having desperation, a guy says, if I elect this MP, I'll probably see him next or her after 5 years. So mbona tusimalizane? Why don't we just get it over with? Give me 100 bob, 50 bob, 200 bob, it's over. So we need to do civic education on that, but most of which need to legislate. How much one needs to spend when you are going to vie for a county assembly seat? How much do you spend when you are going to vie for a legislative seat, whether in the National Assembly or in the Senate? How much should you spend when you are going to vie for the presidency? Big sums of money get used in electoral processes in Kenya. Kibera the other day, you know, the guys in Kibera are so happy. Money was literally pouring in Kibera for almost 2 months. Why do you have to do that? Why do you even allow it? Why wasn't even the IBC, even in the current setup, we were waiting for BBI. Why could the IBC say, candidate X, you're pouring so much money, and because our electoral laws do not allow you to pour that much amount of money, I'm disqualifying you? That's where we need to reach. We need to be a country where, when systems are set, where laws are set, we need to be faithfully follow them up.
Can we get there? Looking at the dynamics and the environment that we have in Kenya, where voters feel like, at the end of the day, even if I vote, no much difference is going to happen. You know, it's a hopeless population. Can we get to that point where that Mwananchi can really rise and come and say, I am the mwenye nchi. Actually, I'm your boss. I'm the one who has to say what I really want, what is my interest. Is it possible?
We are getting there. I've analyzed the three citizens from Western West, from Busia. And I like that old mama who qualifies to be my grandmother. What do you expect from her? Because she voted in a leader, a member of parliament and a MCA who should take care of our welfare, who should take care of bursary, who should take care of the roads. It's as simple as that. And therefore, because it's a document that she's hearing over vernacular radio, not even in Swahili or English, with a lot of respect, then can only rely on the son or daughter or MCA. But by virtue of the fact that even the MCA, it has been reported by the local vernacular that MCAs have been invited in Bomas, and she doesn't know whether Bomas is in state or whatever, then that is the authority. If you analyze our society, you find that there's generation of that mama, there's a generation of an hour who has said that I will read at it, I will look at it, but if I find this is not a bear, I will oppose it. Why? Because he has started by saying, I will read, meaning he has an interest to see that copy and see what it has. So the power of reading, and that's why we are going to have a lot of results in the free primary education, such that you have a population in the next 20 years where every citizen is a class 8 or KCPE graduate. That empowers the citizen to read and write. Remember, that is what was addressed by Kenyatta, to read and write, to be able to analyze basic issues. So I think we will be now transiting from a free primary to free secondary education, so that then you empower society with the ability to read, because lack of ability then disenfranchises one's ability to say yes or no. Remember, if you look at how the regional political parties were voted in 2002, how NAC swept, and how ODM swept, and how KANU swept, versus the political diversity of the members of parliament in this house, no region has a monopoly of now compelling its citizens through political whims to have one color or one political representations. So how did the citizens elect a candidate on a different political party other than Jubilee in a Jubilee stronghold, and so is Wiper stronghold and ODM? It tells you that the society is able to listen and it's developing law. So let's have hope that we are developing a society from the generation of the old one to the new one. They have ability to read and write, coupled with the national ethos and values, but they must be engraved not on over 50 years. You must again enshrine them in the mind of the developing children, your children and my children, so that as they grow, they adopt that as part of ethos and values of society, so that you can have a society in the next 30 years that can read from the same script. Most of us are already cemented, just like a concrete mass, and therefore it is too late for us to teach new skills. Then it's up to even this BBI to address how do you strategically manage the new generation of 0 years to 10 years or to 15 years, such that in the next 30 years we have a generation of over 30 years that are products of national values and principles, religious values, whatever they are. And I think that is the way we need to.
All right. We're coming back to continue having this conversation, but now I want to take our viewers to the Central Bank headquarters right here in Nairobi. The CBK Governor, Dr. Patrick Njoroge, is currently addressing the nation on matters that are touching on the economy. Let's listen in. All right, we will be getting back to that particular event later once we get a clear signal. But yeah, in studio here we're talking about matters BBI. And the other issue that also forms the 9-point agenda that you know, the task force was referencing to is the issue of dealing with divisive elections. Yes. We've seen this, and even you yourself, you said that the only time we can remember in history that we had sort of a peaceful election was 2002, when during the Kibaki-Tosha era. Most of the time, politics have been a very emotive subject, and it's been sort of like a do or die scenario for Kenya. Why do we get to that point? Why is it such a thorny issue? Why can't we just hit the ballot and elect a leader and go back home and move on, accept and move on, if I may use that phrase?
No,
you know, why is politics so divisive? Even with the BBI debate, you've seen how it was sort of intended to bring unity, but it has been divisive in terms of which side you're on. Why are we such a divided nation? On every issue, almost even the census, there was that whole debate of, I don't know, it's almost like we can never really agree and move in one direction.
We can. Yeah, the issue is the resources. It's all boiled down to resources.
Correct.
Yes. The people have a history of resource appropriation based on power and politics. And it's possible to change that. In fact, devolution was one aspect of trying to change that, though we have not moved deep enough. I would like to see a state where we are not allocating 15% to the counties. We are allocating 60% to the counties. Let the local mwananchi decide what kind of thing they want for their own socio-economic benefit. Yeah, and that's how devolution, if it grows well, will be a solution to some of those issues. So by the moment when I'm the chief executive, even today, I have 85% of, minus what the judiciary controls, I have 85% of the national cake within my realms. People will fight to get there. And that's what happens. So those who are in power would like to continue with the status quo. Those who are aspiring for power would like to do all they can so they can get this power. Hence, elections become very divisive. Secondly, I know my friend was talking of that disparity in terms of 2/3. It's possible, in my view, by the way, that you can actually have an election where this guy wins by 1 vote. But everybody agrees this guy has won by 1 vote, and it does not matter because that president will be president for all of us. So in my county, in his county, in your county, we'll still be okay, and we wait for the next 5 years and do the same thing. Yeah, it will be very, we'll be stretching it too far, in my view, if we require that there must be an absolute win for one person for us to move forward. Let's develop structures and systems that allow even a one vote win and people shake hands and say, yes, you have beaten me. It was one vote. I just wish I was able to convince the other guy to vote for me and not you. But we move ahead and do that. Yes, it's all resources. If we find a formula of how to appropriate resources and how to, on the converse, build each and every part of this country to also generate resources. One of the things that we suffer from as a nation is that sometimes we depend on a few regions to generate resources. And this also brings issues. Some regions complain that they are the ones who generate resources. Why do other people have to come and sit at the table to allocate it? There's every part of this country, and nowadays the world is a global village. Israel is a very dry place, or it was, but they're able to generate food. Nothing stops Kenya through very good programs to generate food from Northeastern, from Rift Valley, from the lake, or from the coast. Every region can be having something economically viable that they can do to add to the GDP of the nation. So that equity in investing in the production for each country is something that I would wish the BBI report to address, as we also address how we divide the resources once we have backed it.
It's going to address the divisive elections. I also want you to comment on why we have this cycle of divisiveness every time we're going to elect our leaders, and what is it that the BBI report ought to include or incorporate as a solution to this particular menace?
On two occasions from 2001, when elections were not divisive in 2002, and post 2007, 2009 up to 2013, the governance was not political as such. There was peace and tranquility. You know why? In 2002, we had a number of leaders who were moving out from KANU and other from opposition, and the citizens felt that they are one country after Moi is gone. Remember what citizens were saying that time? Moi must go, because they thought Moi was a problem. But Moi was not the problem, it's the structure of governance. In 2005, there's an attempt by this group to develop a referendum. And a number of them, including Raila, Kalonzo and others, jump out and they say that the power structure that is being developed does not solve the problem that brought us together. And then there's a divisive referendum. And then again, President Kibaki gets it difficult to manage and rule the country in 2006 and 7. In fact, a 2007 election brings about then Ruto, who was in KANU, and others who form a Pentagon, a replica of 2002 brigade, to confront another presidential rule that has run away from a team. That's the point. Now, why is it that a number of Kenyans were believing in Pentagon to the extent that Raila and his team could raise up to about, let's say, 40% to 50% of the voters? Is because they felt if Najib Balala and so is Nyaga and so is Charity Ngilu and Ebisi and Kalonzo are in power, our regions will continue to benefit, because the regime from Kenyatta to Moi, to the perception of the citizenry who are the voters, that they have been benefiting more than them. So it is not that there was peace. The peace was covered just because they could see their leaders in position, and therefore these were tribal or ethnic leaders in position of power, so that they can get some reward in terms of road, in terms of favor, in terms of nepotism that was practiced that time, because the reward in government was that. Post 2007, which is 2008, and you talked about it, when we have a Mukate government, who do we have in the government? There is absolutely no opposition. Then there is peace and tranquility. Then President Kibaki is able to advance his agenda. When Raila is the prime minister in the house, so 50-50 of the assembly, they are able to agree on a few issues. But remember, Kibaki is on exit, and therefore Raila begins now to mind. Towards 2013 again, there are sparks of fires, where now there is Itoti, there is Uhuru, and then quest for president for the next little campaign. So anytime we have our leaders coming together, there is peace. Now, post-election again, it counters us in 2017, where we have People's Assembly, some counting, trying to balkanize this country, including so that, because the intention was to block the interior of Kenya from coastal region, which is the entry point, and then from exit, which is Balaba and Busia borders, which were Anasa areas. Then therefore you mean the central aspect of Kenya must rely coming through Anasa, the People's Republic, and exit goods to Uganda through the People's Republic. That was a tool for negotiating. which again we went on and on until there was an handshake. And in less than 5 minutes, when there was an handshake, in this city of Nairobi, there used to be about not more than 200 around the Kenyatta Avenue. But immediately after handshake, until at around 11, because I remember I was in the city, then everyone was free and no one was afraid of the other. Then again, you see the participation of Uhuru and Raila and saying now we can work together and bring the Kenyans together, because the voters who voted for Raila Odinga are now no longer desperate, because they think through him and others who are in that brigade of NASA, including Mudavadi and Wetangula, then their regions are going to benefit. So it is that perception that when our leaders are in position of authority that we are going to benefit, because the fact of the matter, even when the leaders get into the position, they also start by rewarding their cronies even before they reward the society. And that is the culture that BBI must address. So that what you've said is true, 50 plus 1 vote %, that can only be practical if then the system of election values and the principles that we practice not written in a book are implemented, so that then you don't care who becomes the president. We want a head of state who lives, eats, drinks and sleeps head of state, not head of a clan, not a head of a political party. That is important. One of the things that I want to congratulate President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, and especially President Kenyatta, is because to admit when you have instruments of power that you don't want to use them further. And remember, there was resistance, this was some people from Jubilee, that how do you allow us to sit with this person when we have worked so hard? That was a calling of a patriotism, element of patriotism that can not really come very fast from an African president, and you've seen quite a number of them who do not absolutely want to share power. To allow another one to come and sit down and say, this is Kenya, we have to agree, you had your votes, I had my votes. Remember, in their conversation, they don't discuss who won. They say this country is bigger, and they know that the election was competitive. So I think that is a point that must be addressed, because the cause of problem in this republic is a discriminative allocation of resources arising from an election that rewards an ethnic group or has voted in a certain ethnic group. So how we are going to address that? It is only then when the President Kenyatta will have a lot of teeth sharp, and a lot of them, more than I don't know which number, that he can force as the chief executive to pronounce upon the parliament that the public will, and therefore if as a parliament you don't compel or you don't pass a legislation on corruption which reads the BCD, I will reject it, I will not assent it, I will take it to the public and the public will be on my side. Look at President Kenyatta, he's surviving at the mercies of Raila Odinga in parliament because he needs the numbers to pass the bills, to pass the budget. Remember the debate about tribal again, debate about the division of revenue bill and count revenue allocation bill, that ODM and Jubilee had to come together to outnumber the absolute minority in the parliament, because President Kenyatta has executive authority backed by Raila's members of parliament in the house to get his development agenda, because without him he cannot succeed. Yes, so this is very important.
Very interesting dynamics you're raising there, and it raises the fundamental issue of the power these political leaders have even on the electorate. And we'll be talking about how they can utilize this power going forward for good, not for selfish interest. But allow us also get to hear what residents of Mombasa County have to say with regards to the much-awaited BBI report. Our reporter, Junei Karisa, is interacting with them this particular morning. A very good morning. Kindly, what are they saying? What are some of the expectations going forward?
Good morning, ZP. Of course, we are joined here by residents of Mombasa to just give us their expectation as the president is expected to receive the BBI report. I'm joined by just one of the residents. Tuanze na wewe David, tueleze BBI ni nini, unaielewa vizuri? Just stand ndo ile kamera yangu iweze kukunasa vizuri. BBI ni nini na ni vipengele gani ambapo ungependa kuona kwamba vinazingatiwa ile ripoti itakapopelekwa kwa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta? Anza na majina.
Majina ni David Amanyachai Junior, na kulingana na swali ambalo umediuliza kuhusu BBI. BBI ni building initiative ambayo imekuja baada ya uchaguzi ambao ulikuwa umechafuka mwaka wa 2017. Na BBI ina comprise mambo mengi, agenda ni 9. Moja ni kwamba divisive politics, ya pili inclusivity, ya tatu ni security, vitu kama hizo ndio siko mmoja katika ile BBI. So matarajio yangu ni kwamba BBI vile Rais Uhuru Kenyatta anaenda kupokea ama kupewa kutoka kwa ile job ambayo ilikuwa limeundwa, ni kwamba at least itakuwa enable corruption. Kitu ya kwanza kabisa ni corruption. Ya pili ni uwiano, watu waelewane, tuwe kitu kimoja Kenya mzima. Tuwe na inclusivity, mahali kila jamii inahusika katika serikalini. Kwa hivyo hatutaki ile kwamba maybe ni kitu inaunga rais mkono peke yake ama wale watu ambao wako mamlakani kama Karuso, Uhuru, Ruto, hapana. Na kitu kingine nimeona nzuri pale, nimeona kuanisha ni kwa newspaper, ni kwamba wameweka post ya prime minister. In fact hiyo ndio kitu muhimu, kwa sababu Wakenya tumekuwa wengi, na kuwa wengi yatakana serikali pia ipanue, iakomodate watu na akili tofauti, ndio serikali inaendeshwa kwa njia mzuri. Kwa hivyo BBI ni initiative ambayo imekuja kusaidia Wakenya wale wako nyuma wawe wachumuishe pamoja na wengine.
Ukiangalia miaka ya nyuma, eneo nzima la Pwani, maeneo kadhaa hususan kaunti ya Mombasa tuseme na Kilifi, wamekuwa upande wa upinzani miaka mingi, na tumeona kwamba baada ya serikali kuu kuundwa, tunaona kwamba wengine wanalalamika kwamba hawako katika ile serikali. Je, hii ripoti itakayoundwa, mnaona kwamba hata mkiwa upinzani, je, mtakuwa katikati ya serikali ambayo itakayoundwa tuseme na wale ambao watakao shinda?
Kulingana na siasa vile inavyokwenda, ni vizuri sana Wakenya wote kuchumuika pamoja na kutoa shida zao kwa viongozi wao. Kwa hivyo hasa sasa watu kama sisi watu wa upinzani tunajulikana kiasi kama hiyo hapa Pwani, tunatarajia kwamba hiyo BBI yenye mereto na His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga inahusiano, inahusisha watu wake wale ambao wanampaki wako upande wake, kwamba na hao pia wajumuishishwe. Kwa mfano mashamba hapa Pwani imekuwa ni donda sugu sana. Watu wanaletewa title deed, inafika hapa inakuwa ni fake, haisaidii Mkenya wa Pwani. Lakini sehemu zingine unapata watu ambao wako na viongozi wako forefront, wako karibu na rais, wanafaidika vitu kama hizo. Kwa sababu sasa kama Pwani tulikuwa hapo na mtetezi ambao alienda maitha, alitoka hapa, Mungu akamchukua. Lakini tunajua kwamba Raila atabeba shida za upinzani ya watu wa Pwani, hasa mashamba na title deed ambao zimekuwa donda ndugu ya kile kama Pwani. Kwa hivyo Raila, hii BBI bila iko, tunajua Raila ameweka at least ameweka mambo ya proti, ameweka mambo ya historical, ameweka vitu vingi so that Wakenya wote wajumuishe katika serikali ya juu.
Ni mazuri hayo. Wacha nimlete huyu, tuambie jina na kwa mtazamo wako vile vipengele ambavyo vitakuwa pale katika ile ripoti. Je, wewe utakuwa matarajio yako ni yapi? Je, utaweza kuridhishwa pindi yatakao, ama ungeona kama muda ungezidi kusongeshwa ili matakwa yenu yaweze kuwa pale?
Kwa jina mimi ninaitwa Festus, na ile initiative ambayo imekuja na Mheshimiwa Rais pamoja na kiongozi Raila ni initiative nzuri. Tunaifurahia ya kwamba wamekuja na mpango unaweza kuunganisha Wakenya pamoja, na zile agenda ambazo walikuwa wameweka pale 9, kwa mtazamo wangu ni agenda ambazo zilikuwa zimeshughulikiwa na commission tofauti kama ile commission ya Waki, Krigla na zingine ambazo zilikuwa zimeshughulikia mambo kama hayo, lakini hatukuona yakifunguka na kupata mpenyo katika bunge letu la kitaifa. Kwa hivyo mimi ningependelea kwamba jambo kama hili lingekuja alafu liweze kutuonyesha mwangaza kulingana na zile commission ambazo zimepita kule nyuma, tuweze kuona ya kwamba zimeangazia mambo kama yale, kwa sababu tulikuwa na shida ya uchaguzi na Krigla akatuonyesha njia ya vile tunaweza kupunguza mambo ya kutengeneza electoral reforms, mambo ya violence during elections, na kuna work report, kuna TGRC ambayo inaleta mambo ya mashamba na kina uwiano na ugawaji wa rasilimali kwa Kenya yetu. Kwa hivyo mimi ningeomba ya kwamba hili jambo lingeangazia aswa yale mambo ambayo yamekuwa yalishughulikiwa huko nyuma lakini hakuweza kufikia mwananchi.
Kama gani?
Kama jambo la electoral reforms ambayo Krigla aliangazia sana, ya kwamba tunaweza kutengeneza mambo ya reforms za electoral bodies, independence of institutions like a judiciary, like parliament, and maybe police reforms, and many other things that maybe would want to see that zimeshughulikiwa na kitu kama hiki. Lakini kama kitakuja kushughulikia mambo ya kisiasa peke yake, nafikiri haitakuwa na msaada mkubwa kwa mwananchi.
Prime Minister waonaje?
Ili jambo la Prime Minister, tukiangazia zile nchi ambazo zimepractice jambo kama hili, tumeona si mbaya, na especially kwa multi-ethnic country like Kenya, pengine naweza kutusaidia ili punguze ile joto ambayo inakuanga kwa competition ya the presidency.
La mwisho tu, pengine tuambie, umeangalia vile vipengele ambavyo viko pale, wewe ni kipi ambacho unaona hususan kitaweza kukusaidia wewe kama mkazi wa Mombasa?
Asante kwa nafasi. Mimi naitwa Elkana, ni mkazi wa Mombasa, na maoni yangu ni kwamba kwanza hii BBI isije ikawa ni kutafutia watu vyeo. Kwanza mimi nashuku hii itaenda kusaidia watu wawili ambao watasalia mamlakani, na kama sisi wananchi wa kawaida tumesumbuka sana kama uchumi. Kama BBI itaangazia mambo ya uchumi, gharama ya maisha imekuwa juu sana. Naomba iangazie wale watu wa chini sasa kama sisi. Asante.
Awacha nimlete tu wa mwisho. Tuambie tu, umeweza kuiona hii ripoti, pengine umeweza kuangalia vile vipengele ambavyo vitaguswa katika ile ripoti ambayo Rais Uhuru Kenyatta anatarajiwa kupata tu muda usiokuwa mrefu leo hii. Wewe kama mkazi wa Mombasa, kipengele kipi ambacho unaona kingepewa kipaumbele?
Kulingana na ripoti ya
na majina.
Kwa majina naitwa Dennis Ochame. Kulingana na ripoti ya BBI, ni jukumu lizuri sana baada ya Rais Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta na Raila Amolo Odinga. Tumetoka mbali mambo na kura, especially mambo na kura. Ukifika wakati tunapenda kupigana kwenda kwa election kila wakati. Jambo la BBI linaangazia mambo mengi. For example, kitu kama corruption imekita nchi yetu sana, na BBI pia itaangazia corruption. Isiwe ni kwamba ni kiti kinafanywa na Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta na Raila Amolo Odinga. Tunaomba iwe na mambo mengi kujumika wa Kenya wote. Especially mimi jambo langu la kwanza ni upande wa kura. Ule anayepinga mambo na BBI ni mtu mwenye ajui Kenya inaenda wapi. Tuwe pamoja, si wakati every election tunapigana, kila election tunapigana, haitusaidii sisi wa Kenya. Tuache siasa ni kwamba BBI ni ya Uhuru na Raila. Hapana, Raila atakufa, Uhuru atakufa, na BBI itaendelea na Kenya itaendelea. Hao wanaopinga BBI huenda nitafaidika wao. Raila can die anytime, Uhuru anaweza kufa wakati wote. Tuache ile siasa kwamba ati BBI ni ya Raila, ni ya watu matajiri.
Sasa wewe angalia, ukiachana na mambo ya siasa na ukiachana na mambo ya uchaguzi, ni kipi chengine ambapo pengine ungeona kimeangaziwa vizuri kwenye hiyo ripoti?
Hiyo ripoti iangalie mambo na kazi kwa vijana, kitu ya kwanza. Kitu ya pili ni corruption. Nchi yetu ni sana. Kama ingekuwa ni kwamba naomba kwamba hiyo BBI iwe ni kwamba mtu akiiba anyongwe, itakuwa ni vizuri. Kuna nchi zingine hiyo sheria iko, ukiiba unanyongwa. So hii BBI iangazie pia upande wa corruption. Second thing, pia mambo na electoral injustice, mambo na mashamba. Hii pwani yetu watu wameibiwa mashamba. Ripoti ilikuwa ni kwamba Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta amekuwa katika huo muda katika uongozi katika hizo karibu term mbili, lakini mambo na mashamba ijangaziwa. So this report iangazie upande wa mashamba. Alafu kitu kingine ni corruption.
Naona swala la corruption limekuwa sana donda sugu wa Kenya wengi. Safina Cheng, as you have heard, is that this is a sensitive issue not only for the political class but for the residents. One plea for them is, of course, it should not be a beneficial, it shouldn't be something that is beneficial to one party only, but to the rest of the country, of course. And the land issue also has been mentioned widely, the residents of Mombasa, and of course these are some of the sentiments across the coastal region. The land issue has been an emotive issue, and of course they are hoping that the report will be able to bring to task such issues here at in Mombasa County and of course the coastal region. I hand it back to you, Safina Cheng, to continue with the discussion in studio.
All right, thank you so much, Junei Karisa there, bringing us up to speed with what residents of Mombasa County have to say as we await for the release of the BBI report. President Uhuru Kenyatta is today going to be receiving that report from the task force, and tomorrow there is going to be the public handing over of that particular report at the Bomas of Kenya. Now in studio we have been interacting and talking about this particular issue, and I'd just like to give my guests a chance to just briefly comment on what some of the issues that those residents were raising. There was one who talked about something very fundamental about reports that have been there in the past, the Kriegler report, the Waki report, the TJRC report, and my question then would be, if we've had such very good reports before that were addressing issues that were pressing for the country, what is it that, failed, and what is it that we can do different with the BBI report? Mheshimiwa.
The Waki report, Truth, Justice and Reconciliation report, and the Kriegler report, and my colleague has mentioned that what we are dealing now with BBI is the tail end of Kriegler report, is that there was lack of political goodwill to execute the proposals that were contained in that detail. There is also lack of political goodwill to execute the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission report. Why? Because, as I've told you, these are, remember, one of the major steps that we had was the new constitution.